And we're here with Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack. And how are you doing today, Secretary Vilsack?
Well, I'm actually very pleased to be back home and very pleased to be able to make a couple of announcements that I think are going to be beneficial to Iowa producers and to the Iowa economy. We've reopened beef trade with Mexico in terms of slaughtered beef, and that's going to open up an opportunity for 200 to 300,000 head. That market's been closed for quite some time, so that's good news. And we also have reached an agreement with Peru to reopen a market there that's been closed for a long, long time to fresh and chilled pork, which should add millions of dollars of additional opportunity for pork producers across the country. So a good day for American agriculture.
Yes, it is very much. And then one thing real quick, when you talk about the USDA, one of the biggest things is the Farm Bill. We just had a new one in 2014. If we were to highlight some of the things that you think was very big in the Farm Bill that's going to help Iowa farmers, what would those be?
Well, first and foremost, the resumption of disaster assistance for livestock producers. We've had over 600,000 payments made to producers across the United States, over $5 billion of assistance and help. These are producers that went through a tough time, for example, in 2012 with drought and have lost livestock, whether it's pork or beef or poultry. And now we're dealing with, obviously, the avian influenza issue with poultry in Minnesota in the upper Midwest. So the ability to respond to concerns like that through disaster assistance programs and help and assistance, that's one thing. Secondly, producers are now making an election, a very important election for them in terms of whether or not they will use the agricultural risk coverage program or the price loss coverage program as part of their safety net when prices go down or yields go down. And so it's exciting to know we've got this new program that's going to provide help and assistance when farmers need it and need it most, getting us away from the old system of direct payments that was very difficult to explain to people in terms of the cost of it. So we're going to see a little savings over time through the ARC and PLC program. I think it's also important the research initiatives. Iowa has benefited from research dollars that we have at USDA. Over $400 million of research has been done here in Iowa since I've been secretary that we've funded. And so it's exciting to know that we have a new research foundation that's going to expand significantly the amount of research that we get done with federal resources. It's also really important in terms of our conservation efforts. I know there's a lot of conversation in Iowa about water quality today. I want Iowans to know that USDA and Iowa producers are working in partnership to do a better job of preserving the soil and maintaining water quality. Over $2.2 billion has been invested in conservation in Iowa from USDA since the time I became secretary. So a tremendous investment that we've made. Producers have invested hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion as well. So they're putting their time, their resources behind better soil health and water quality. And I know that it's working because we're doing assessments and we're seeing positive results in terms of reduced soil erosion, reduced nitrogen and phosphorus levels over time. You're going to have certain situations which we experience in weather, heavy rains and so forth. It's going to take some time, obviously, to get to a much better place, and I think it's going to take more aggressive action on the part of the state in particular. I think we need to have an opportunity to utilize the new program in the Farm Bill, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, as effectively as some other states have used for water quality. There was a $45 million project in Michigan, lots of different partners. I'd like to see Iowa step up and really take full advantage of that program.
Now, you talked a little bit about it at the beginning. The avian flu, it's breaking out in a lot of states around us. What is the USDA doing about that, and what preventative measures do we have to help keep that under control?
Well, here's the challenge. This is a result of wild birds, flocks, contaminating, if you will, domestically raised turkeys and chickens. The problem is that we can't prevent this in a sense that we can't prevent a wild bird from having this influenza and passing it on. If they have a low-path influenza, they pass it on, they don't die. It's difficult to essentially prevent. So we are in the business of basically controlling the impact when a flock basically has this by biocontrol mechanisms to identify as quickly as we possibly can the fact that a bird is infected, and then deal with the flock by either isolating those birds and killing those birds or killing the entire flock if we have to. And then USDA has responsibility for reimbursing the livestock producer for the loss of the poultry that's been lost. So we have a surveillance program. We have a research initiative as well, trying to figure out if there are ways in which we can potentially create vaccines that could provide us an opportunity to cure this thing. And we have a indemnification or reimbursement responsibility.
Now, if we look forward into your last 2 years as Secretary of Agriculture, most likely, what initiatives are you going to work on? What new bills are you going to work on to better help farmers all across the country, really?
Well, at this point, USDA also has major responsibilities in the nutrition space, basically in terms of our school nutrition programs, as well as our programs to provide nutritious options for women, infants, and children, and the programs that we have with our child care and adult feeding, summer feeding programs, our nutrition programs. And they are up for reauthorization this year. So part of our focus will be on reauthorizing those important nutrition programs. Secondly, and certainly equally important, we will continue to work with the President, the Vice President, the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, and other cabinet members to try to encourage Congress to get the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, once it's finalized, passed, and getting Trade Promotion Authority passed, so that we can get these trade agreements that we're now negotiating with 11 different countries in Asia finished and then ultimately ratified. Important trade agreement. Expanded middle-class market opportunities, reducing tariffs, great opportunity for agriculture, multiple billions of dollars of increased trade, and not ceding the territory in Asia to more of a Chinese influence. We want the U.S. to be engaged and involved in that part of the world, helping to set the rules, increasing labor standards, increasing environmental standards, and making sure that trade is fair.
And moving over to the West Coast here, California is experiencing quite the drought right now, and that potentially can affect agriculture as well. What part would you have in involving with that, and what do you think is the solution to their problems?
USDA has a number of responsibilities. First, we provide conservation assistance to enable producers to do more with less in terms of water. We also have emergency water assistance programs for communities that are having difficulties with their wells running dry, to be able to access additional water. So there's that responsibility. We have the responsibility to reimburse livestock producers for losses that they've sustained as a result of drought. I mentioned the disaster assistance program earlier. We have that responsibility. We have a responsibility to provide research, ways in which we can figure out how to do more with less and how to use water more effectively and efficiently. One of the interesting research projects that recently was funded was capturing fog off of the ocean in the morning, and basically using that to help provide additional moisture. We're also engaged in a variety of additional long-term research projects looking at seed technology to figure out ways in which we can produce food, fruits, vegetables, and so forth with less water than in the past. So there's a combination of responsibilities. We've also providing additional food assistance for communities that have been hit hard. We've also working with the farm community to make sure that they have adequate labor supply. Gets into the issue of immigration reform as well.
Now let's look at your political career in general here. First of all, you were governor for 2 terms, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Do you miss being Iowa governor? I mean, I know you're encompassing a little bit less area when you're the Iowa governor. Do you miss that?
You know, the great thing about being the Secretary of Agriculture is, first and foremost, you have an understanding that you're helping the entire country and you're impacting the world. Henry Wallace was the last Iowan to have a constitutionally created cabinet position. So I understand and appreciate the enormous privilege and honor that I've had in basically following in his footsteps. Being the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture is very similar to being a governor in the sense that you have almost all the responsibilities that a governor has. You have human service responsibilities through nutrition programs. You have conservation and the Forest Service, so you are involved in natural resources. You're involved in trade and economic development and through rural development investments and business growth. So you basically have all, you're even involved in education through the school nutrition programs. So you have almost all of the responsibilities that a governor has. They're slightly different, but same categories. So in a sense, it's like being governor of 50 states. And so it's a wonderful job. I was certainly privileged to be governor, but because I have got this wonderful job, it's not that I miss being something else. I just appreciate the fact that I was governor for 2 terms and that I think we made a positive impact on the state.
And then let's wrap it up a little bit more here. How is your relationship with the Iowa delegation? I know you had a great relationship with Senator Harkin. Now you have Senator Ernst in there. You have a few new congressmen in there. How is your relationship with them, and how have you developed bills or such? How have you worked with them in Washington?
Well, fortunate in terms of the Senate. I've always had a long-time relationship and level of respect for Senator Grassley. We work well together. We're in constant communication about issues involving the Farm Bill. I have had an opportunity to visit with Senator Ernst briefly, both at a White House function for new members of Congress, as well as just prior to a Senate hearing. We tried to establish an opportunity for us to have breakfast together, but our schedules were a bit difficult to align, so we're going to try to get that rescheduled. Have had an opportunity to talk with Congressman Young several times in the airport because we were often on the same flights. And work with him as well in terms of the House Appropriations Committee on Agriculture. I've not had an opportunity to visit much with Congressman Blum from the Northeast Iowa, but I know my wife Christie's had a chance to visit with him. And obviously, I've known Congressman King and Congressman Vilsack for quite some time. So we work well, and the fact that we got a farm bill through in 2014, signed by the president, and it's doing phenomenal work, I think is a testimony to the fact that we've got good relations with folks on both sides.
Well, thank you very much, Secretary Vilsack, and it was great talking with you.
You bet. Thank you.